Howdy, folks. In this one, we're thinking about the just actual placement of Solo, both in this class and in a release order to the franchise itself. So I want to kind of position these two in conversation with each other. I want to think about them in terms of culture and just the general Star Wars experience as it unfolds and as we are inheriting it. And maybe even as COVID lockdown type things interact with what's happening. So, as you know, we're in the Disney era Star Wars thing. Force Awakens comes out December 2015. After that, a year later, Rogue One, December 2016. And this starts the plan for Lucasfilm under Disney of release order. So you're getting a saga film and you're getting a Star Wars story film, alternating years. What this does is it gives us Star Wars stuff every year. Cynical or not, that might be a money grab, but also it does give the saga 2 years to set up its releases, to make these films. That is not a rush job when you've got all of Lucasfilm working towards this as a segment of Disney. There's no budget issues. Star Wars is Star Wars. You've got actors lining up to play Star Wars characters. It's not really an undoable timeline, so I wasn't too worried about that. What I was really into was the idea that we're getting Star Wars every single year. Theoretically, you could even pump out the EPs 7, 8, 9 one after another yearly, right? You just have 3 years of working nonstop on the full thing. That's not how they went about it, nor would I have proposed it, but if they did it, I would have said ambitious, not gonna fail, right? So we're getting this interspersed thing. I really do think, as I've mentioned before, that it is part of filling the vacuum of the extended universe. The second the blue type comes in a galaxy far, far away on the first screening of The Force Awakens, and this can be a personal space too. The moment you see that, all of the extended universe books, Legends of the Force, kicks into action, and so all you have is this mythology, and you don't have canonical, the fact of how all of these things unfold. Oh, where did the plans for the Death Star come from? How did Han and Chewie meet? We have a lot of legends for all of that stuff, but we don't have the fact of the matter until these films appear. So we then go from Rogue One into The Last Jedi in 2017, and then, interestingly, that happens in December, and then Solo comes out May of 2018. So this is an interesting maneuver. It's a Star Wars story. Why does it need a December release, right? There were no other projects that ended up being slated for a December release, so it's not like they were trying to get 2 Star Wars stories, extended universe things in at once. There wasn't anything in production that could have wrapped by December anyway. You have to be at least in reshoots at that point, really locked into the editing room to make sure you have everything going that you need done. And December would have been a quick turnaround for not having anything real happening. So we get this oddity happening. Now, May is important because May 4th, Star Wars Day, May the 4th be with you. I thought it was a little awkward that then it's released on May 10th. I think they should have scrambled to get it out for May 4th. It's Star Wars. You can release a film on any day of the week you want. And we've seen it before where a film comes out, you can get a ticket on a Tuesday night for a Wednesday release. And what happens is that gives more people the time to get into the theater so that your weekend box office has an extra day and a half, 2 days of ticket sales. So you've got especially in a Star Wars moment where you have diehard Star Wars fans, you could theoretically have that same person buying a ticket for every day all the way up through Saturday. And so then you get these seats filled. That counts as your opening weekend box office numbers, so it's a cheat. they need to redesign how they configure those things, because amount of money made versus tickets sold makes things a little awkward, because you have amazing records being set by films in the 90s that are just getting swamped today, but you're selling tickets for twice as much. It's a whole thing. You can get into just like film theater experience history and not even really dig into the quality of film themselves. But either way, you're going to bump into Star Wars because it's a big deal. Now, what's happening is we're getting an experience. We're getting this yearly release. And we assumed that after The Last Jedi, we would have another Star Wars film. Now, there's a lot of scuttlebutt. There's a lot of what's going on. There's a lot of decisions that are made to not do that. And they may or may not be based on Solo and its performance. Its box office wasn't bad. It wasn't really problematic. And also, The Last Jedi didn't get as slammed as some people may have felt. Whatever happens, they pump the brakes on these things. And so we only have two Star Wars story films, Rogue One and Solo. Now, that then gives us a weird moment. First, Solo comes out in May. And so we have then a December without a Star Wars film, to then wrap all the way around to the release of Episode 9, the Rise of Skywalker. And so it was this weird dead air space, especially when you're in the moment, especially when we're on the cusp of wrapping up the saga. Solo comes out and you're like, okay, but Ep 9. Where is Ep 9? That's what I'm here for. The last film in the trilogy of trilogies, Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. And I'm going back to watch Solo. Felt a little weird, all right? Especially when you're releasing it early to do nothing in December. It then gave this weird vacuum. I think I would have greatly appreciated Solo happening in December, because then it would have been like, well, I'm not getting 9 for a year, but at least I got Solo. Whereas in May, I'm like, it's basically 2 years until The Last Jedi, or The Rise of Skywalker, until the end of the Skywalker saga. It's like, damn, I needs me some Star Wars. And so you get this weird desert in the release schedule. Now, as far as how it is released in this course, all right, I did it a little differently. Basically, I just flipped Solo and Rogue One. I think that there are two things happening. There's a reason I do it, right? First and foremost, we've talked about, where do you even put Rogue One when you're doing this modified machete order? Where do you put Rogue One? And there's really only one place, right? It is after Episode 3. So cool. But what this then does is say, yeah, but then we can't like section them off and do Solo. Do we do Solo? Because Rogue One then happens in this moment of, you should watch F4 right after that, and you can, but then we're rewatching F4 and there's only a few weeks in the semester, so we have to budget the time. I guess I could have done Ep3 Solo, Rogue One, get a little bit of chronology, but the only way this really works is if you could have like two screens, Rogue One and Solo playing at the same time as this prep for Ep4, and then we still should be rewatching Ep4. Like, you end Solo and then you watch the scene on Tatooine in the cantina, and Solo just kind of doesn't fit the Skywalker saga as much as Rogue One does. Rogue One, Death Star, Vader, especially in the modified machete order, you get this Vader moment that's super cool, that you don't get a Vader moment in Ep3. You see him, show up, and cool, he screams, "No, Padme, no!" And I hold that he is the one that kills her in that moment, but that's still not Vader screaming through this hallway with lightsaber going. That's just not what we have when we have the advent of Vader. We love Rogue One in that moment, or I love Rogue One in that moment, because it really transitions us to Ep 4, just where Vader is this violent, dominating force. And I think it allows us to remember. Nostalgia is so important to the experience of Star Wars. You get to remember that Obi-Wan fight after the Vader boarding the Tantive 4, right? So you get this really, really cool play of past and present, of memory and Star Wars. You love Star Wars, but there are so many things in Star Wars that drive you nuts, right? So then Solo kind of gets ejected. It loses the momentum of the Skywalker saga. And I didn't want to disinclude it either, because this course would then just be every Star Wars film except one. And you know what, gang? Like, what if you're a Han Solo fan and this movie is for you? I don't want to exclude a film. Maybe down the road, if we get 10 more Star Wars Stories films, I can cut some stuff. But we're sitting here in this moment of where does Solo go? And this reignites a question that I had when we're driving home, when we're doing the debrief. Me, my boy Greg, my boy Drew, and they all came out to my place, and we went to the theater and we watched this thing. And at the end, we didn't have any real discussion about whether or not it was a cool movie. It was a cool movie, and I hold this movie gets better every single time I watch it because I need less from it, and so I see it doing its own thing. But in May, when we're over a year, maybe even over a year and a half from the next Star Wars film, the Rise of Skywalker, the end of the saga, when we're that far away, I have to ask the question, what was Solo for? What does it do? What is it for? And I think that my inclusion is my argument for it. We have the notion of you got to backfill the extended universe. You get the EU, and there's a lot of cool stuff in there. Kira, money, right? She is a dynamic, amazing character with a lot of this space, this nuance, this kind of foil character, this opposite but similar enough to compare. Han Solo, right? Rogue, that's the good guy. Han Solo, she even explains to him. And she is not just insisting, as Han Solo always insists that he's not the good guy. She is actively not being the good guy, right? The Empire, the universe, the Syndicate, the government, all of this stuff just makes people do bad things to survive. And so you see Han Solo doing that, but he maintains this goodness, right? This anti-heroic. And Kira seems to be doing a different version of this. Not quite evil. You see her at the end. She's still under Darth Maul. Like she's under a Sith-trained individual. So she is still like Han to Luke, Kira to Maul, right? You still have that scale, but she is not this righteousness that Han is. Like the second he gets to pull one over on Dryden Voss, he does, and he does it in favor of the good people who are trying to not be part of a crime syndicate, right? Kira maintains the crime syndicate. Now, there might be something to be said about she didn't have options. I don't know. I suspect that Solo 2 demands a little bit more of an existence because of what ends there. Maul's there. Kira's there. Solo and Chewie are going on to Tatooine. We still have this moment of, well, Han, why did Jabba put a bounty on your head? We haven't seen that, right? We haven't seen it occur. So it seems like Solo 2 is kind of demanded something, right? But where does Solo fall in this course is a product of wanting to include all the films, kind of wanting to answer the question of what is Solo for, but I argue that Solo coming after 7 allows for this kind of mini machete order that kind of gives Solo a bit more import as we ramp up to 8 and 9, because Solo coming after The Last Jedi, coming after The Force Awakens, acts as this kind of requiem. We saw Han die. He is gone. He is killed by his son. And then, in the intermediary space, we flash back to who is Solo. We see a lot of stuff going on. We see him coming up, and we also see his son, his next generation, coming up. We see Kira, who is not this thing in the original space. The original space is about Leia. And so we've got a lot of cool stuff happening in which Solo performs very well after The Force Awakens as a requiem for Han Solo. I think it makes a lot more sense in that position. I think Solo would have had a lot greater impact on Star Wars fans. I think it's a great film for Han Solo fans, but for Star Wars fans, for saga fans, I guess is what I mean. For saga fans, it was this weird thing that occurred when we were just frothing at the mouth. We were just foaming. We were rabid for the conclusion that some of us were waiting for 42 years to see, right? Like this is the idea. And Solo's there. And like, what was it for? Yeah, we saw a lot of stuff, a lot of cool stuff happened. But what was it for? In this class, it's a requiem for Han Solo. That's where it fits. I don't think that we would have been sold on the Star Wars story Enterprise if we didn't have Rogue One, because Rogue One was phenomenal. No one hated every scene of Rogue One. That's the thing. Like okay, I hated everything except Vader in the corridor. Like I haven't met the Star Wars fan who hated every scene of Rogue One. I haven't seen that person. So I think Rogue One was really the right move in terms of selling us on this. A Star Wars story, extended universe film could work. I think Solo wouldn't have done as great a job at that, but I also think Solo would have been much better received if it's the next year after the death of Han. I think that that's kind of the tension that's happening. Now, we have the extended universe being filled out in a different way. We didn't get that intermediary movie ever again. We haven't had another Star Wars story film. But with Disney Plus, we're getting The Mandalorian. We're getting a High Republic show. They just, the rumor mill has just popped off about a Boba Fett miniseries. We've got another individual show that's just being hinted at. Like someone is vaguely referencing their proposal. And you get a whole bunch of boring clickbait, disappointing stuff happening right now. But it seems like this television series, this limited series or perpetual series, this Disney Plus series, seems to be the formula that is working. And a part of it, I think, has everything to do with COVID, where we're trapped at home, where we're doing this, but also it's going to help with this, you can't go to the movie theaters, right? But it does work well for the EU because there's just so much space. You're going to do it with just a 2-hour and change film? Or, as you see with The Mandalorian 2, Season 2, no spoilers, but they continue the numbering. So the last episode of Season 1 is Chapter 8, and the first episode of Season 2 is Chapter 9. But anyways, gang, this is just kind of giving you the sense of where Solo fits from a few different angles. So check out the rest of the vids and pop on the boards. I'll catch y'all there.